Your bank just sent you a one-time password. You glanced at it. You typed it in, 6 digits, valid for 30 seconds. The only thing standing between a stranger and your life savings. You type it in, the transaction clears, and you move on with your day without a second thought. What you saw, do not know, and what the app sitting quietly in the background of your phone is counting on you not knowing, is that it already read that message before you did. It copied the digits. It sent them somewhere you will never see. And by the time you realize something is wrong, the window to stop it has already closed. This is not a hypothetical constructed to frighten you. This is not a paranoid edge case scenario designed to generate clicks on a slow news day. This is a documented, actively exploited attack vector that cybersecurity researchers at firms including Kaspersky, ESET, and Zimperium have been publishing warnings about for years. And the reason it keeps working, the reason banks keep fielding fraud calls from customers who did everything right, is that the apps doing this do not look dangerous. They look useful. They look familiar. They look exactly like the kind of app you would download without thinking twice. So stop. Because what you are about to learn changes how you look at everything on your phone. Before we get to the 4 specific app categories, you need to understand what an OTP actually is, and why the entire security model built around it has a specific and exploitable weakness. A one-time password is a temporary code generated by your bank or financial institution and sent to your registered mobile number via SMS whenever a transaction or login attempt needs to be verified. The logic behind it is sound. Even if a criminal has your username and password, they still need physical access to your phone to intercept the code. The OTP is the second. Factor in two-factor authentication. It is the reason your bank considers SMS verification secure enough to protect wire transfers, credit card changes, and account access from new devices. The logic is sound, and in isolation, the OTP system is genuinely more secure than a static password alone. The weakness is not in the OTP itself. The weakness is in the SMS inbox where it lands. Your SMS inbox on an Android device is not a sealed vault. It is a shared resource that applications can request permission to read. And the permission they request to do it, read SMS, is a standard Android permission that millions of apps have been granted by users who either did not notice the request, did not understand what it meant, or decided it seemed reasonable for the type of app they were downloading. Once an app has read SMS permission, it can silently monitor every text message that arrives on your phone, including the ones from your bank, including the ones containing your OTP codes, and it can transmit that content to a remote server without triggering any visible alert or notification that would tell you something is wrong. The 4 categories of apps that cybersecurity researchers have repeatedly and consistently identified as vehicles for this type of data theft are not obscure or suspicious looking. They are the exact categories that populate the top downloaded lists on app stores worldwide. And the first category is utility and system optimization apps, and this is the one that has been exploited the longest and most consistently. Flashlight apps, battery saver apps, RAM cleaner apps, storage optimizer apps. These apps have been a vehicle for hidden malware since the early days of the smartphone era, and they continue to be because the core value proposition they offer, making your phone run better, creates a plausible reason to request broad system permissions. A battery optimization app asking for permission to read your phone's processes and background activity seems reasonable. A storage cleaner asking for access to files seems reasonable. And critically, neither of those permission requests sounds like the same thing as asking to read your private messages, even when the app also requests SMS access buried in the permission list that most users scroll past without reading. Researchers at ESET documented multiple flashlight and cleaner apps in the Google Play Store that contained hidden modules specifically designed to intercept OTP messages and relay them to command and control servers operated by criminal groups in Eastern Europe and Southeast Asia. Several of these apps had been downloaded more than 1 million times before removal. The users who downloaded them had no way of knowing. App Store ratings were positive. The reviews looked real. The description mentioned nothing about SMS interception because, of course, it did not. The second category is third-party keyboard replacement apps, and this is arguably the most dangerous category on this list because the risk is structural rather than incidental. Third-party keyboards are among the most dangerous category of application you can install on a phone containing banking apps, and that danger is frequently underappreciated by the people who install them. A keyboard app sits between you and everything you type, every password, every search query, every message, every pin. By definition, a keyboard needs extensive system access to function, and that access, legitimately used, is what makes a third-party keyboard useful. But a keyboard app designed with malicious intent and does not need a separate SMS permission to capture your OTP. It captures it when you type it in, Researchers at Kaspersky identified keyboard apps available outside the official app stores, and in some cases within them that included key logging functionality, transmitting typed content, including authentication codes to remote servers in real time. The most sophisticated versions of these apps waited specifically for character sequences, matching the format of bank OTP codes before triggering the transmission, minimizing data volume and reducing the chance of detection by network monitoring tools. The third category is QR code scanner and document scanner apps, and this category is particularly worth understanding because it introduced an infection method that changed how the security community thinks about App Store trust entirely. This category has been the subject of repeated security advisories from Google, from national cybersecurity agencies in the United Kingdom, Australia, and the United States, and from independent researchers who have documented what has become known as the bait and switch infection vector. In this model, an app is submitted to an app store in a clean and functional state. It passes automated security screening. It accumulates reviews and downloads over weeks or months, building the appearance of legitimacy. Then an update is pushed. The update contains the malicious module. Users who already have the app installed receive it automatically. And overnight, an application that was previously benign becomes a data harvesting tool sitting on devices that its users trust and never thought to re-examine. Zimperium's 2023 mobile threat report identified scanner apps as one of the primary delivery mechanisms for this update-based infection approach, with documented cases in which apps with hundreds of thousands of legitimate installations were converted into OTP harvesting tools through a single malicious update. The fourth category is free VPN apps, specifically free VPN applications from developers with no established public presence or verifiable corporate identity. The appeal of a free VPN is easy to understand. You want privacy. You want to access content that is geographically restricted. You want protection on public Wi-Fi. And a free VPN promises all of that at no cost. The cost, when it exists, is paid in data. A VPN app, by its fundamental design, routes all of your internet traffic through its servers. A malicious VPN routes all of your internet traffic through servers controlled by people whose interest in your financial information is not academic. Beyond the traffic interception risk, several free VPN apps identified by researchers at Top 10 VPN and Citizen Lab had also requested SMS read permissions that had no legitimate relationship to their stated function. A VPN application has no valid technical reason to read your SMS inbox. There's no network routing function, no privacy protection mechanism, and no feature that any legitimate VPN provides that requires access to your text messages. When it requests that permission, the request has one purpose and one purpose only. Now here's the part that matters most, because awareness without action is just anxiety with better vocabulary. Open your phone's settings right now. On Android, go to Settings, then Apps, then look for the option labeled Permissions or App Permissions, depending on your device. Find the SMS or Messages Permission category and open it. What you're looking at is the complete list of every application on your phone that has been granted access to read your text messages. Scroll through that list carefully. Any app on that list that is not your default messaging application, your bank's official application, or an app from a verified and trusted developer that has a documented and legitimate reason to read SMS has no business being there. Revoke the permission immediately. If you do not recognize why an app needs SMS access and the developer's explanation does not satisfy you, do not just revoke the permission. Delete the app entirely. On iPhone, the risk profile is different because iOS enforces stricter permission boundaries between applications and does not allow third-party apps to read SMS content directly in the same way Android does, but the threat is not zero. Malicious iOS apps have been documented using accessibility permissions and screen recording capabilities to capture displayed OTP codes before users enter them. After you have audited your SMS permissions and removed everything that should not be there, do 3 more things that will meaningfully reduce your exposure going forward. First, check your bank account and credit card statements for transactions you did not authorize, going back at least 60 days. OTP theft is often part of a patient and methodical fraud operation, in which credentials are collected over time before being used, meaning the theft and the fraudulent transaction may not happen on the same day. Second, contact your bank and ask about the availability of authentication, options that do not rely on SMS. Many banks now offer authentication through their own dedicated app using cryptographic keys stored on your device, which cannot be intercepted by an SMS reading application. Hardware security keys are available for some banking platforms and represent the most robust authentication option currently available to consumers. Third, update your phone's operating system and every application you choose to keep. because unpatched vulnerabilities in older software versions represent a separate attack vector that malicious actors use in conjunction with permission-based data theft to establish deeper and more persistent access to compromised devices. Here is what the fraud actually looks like from the victim's perspective, because understanding the timeline helps explain why so many people do not catch it in time. The theft of your OTP and the fraudulent use of your account do not always happen simultaneously. In many documented cases, criminal groups operating these tools collect credentials and authentication codes over an extended period before deploying them. They may harvest your OTP for a transaction you completed legitimately and store it without acting on it immediately. What they are often waiting for is a pattern. They want to understand your transaction behavior, your typical transfer amounts, the days and times you are most active, the kinds of payees you send money to regularly. With that pattern established, a fraudulent transaction designed to mimic your normal behavior is significantly less likely to trigger your bank's automated fraud detection systems than a large transfer to an unfamiliar account executed at an unusual hour. By the time the fraud surfaces on your statement, the connection between the malicious app that made it possible and the specific transaction that cost you money can be weeks or months old. Most victims never make the connection at all. They call the bank, dispute the transaction, and assume their card details were compromised in a data breach somewhere. The app on their phone that enabled the whole chain is still there, still reading, still sending. This is also why the permission audit matters more than any individual app deletion. Removing one suspicious app without auditing all SMS permissions on your device is like changing one lock on a house where several doors are still open. The goal is not to respond to a specific threat you have already identified. The goal is to close every unnecessary access point across your entire device so that no application sitting on your phone has more visibility into your communications than it has a verified, documented, legitimate reason to have. That standard, verified, documented, legitimate reason is a higher bar than most people have been applying. Raise the bar now. Apply it carefully and without exception to every single app currently on your SMS permission list. And if any application cannot clear it, remove the permission. If the app stops working without that permission, the permission was always the product, not the feature. Step back from the specific technical details for a moment and ask a simpler question. Why does this keep happening at scale? The reason is not that users are careless or unsophisticated. It is that the system asks them to make security decisions without giving them the information those decisions require. When you install an app and a permissions dialog appears asking for access to your messages, the dialog does not explain what the app intends to do with that access. It does not tell you that access means the app can read your bank codes in real time. It does not flag that this particular permission on this particular app from this particular developer with this particular history represents a risk that outweighs whatever utility the app offers. It just asks, and most people, reasonably and understandably, say yes. The security burden has been placed on the individual user at the exact moment when the individual user has the least information and the least context to make an informed decision. That is a design failure at the system level, not a user failure at the individual level. The permission dialog was designed to obtain consent, not to ensure informed consent. Those are not the same thing. But until the design changes, the practical responsibility for protecting your financial accounts from SMS interception sits with you in the settings menu of the device in your pocket. In the list of permissions you probably have not looked at since you set up your phone. Look at it now. Revoke what should not be there. Delete what cannot explain itself. And the next time an app asks for access to your messages, ask yourself one question before you tap allow. What does this app actually need to read my texts for? If the answer is not immediately obvious, the answer is probably no.